Thank you very much for watching my film. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment if you have any questions, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. You can also follow me on Instagram and sign up for my free monthly newsletter. I'll leave links to all of that in the video description. So this is the first of a 5-part video where I'm tackling the entire Gran Guanche loop. The Gran Guanche is a long distance bikepacking adventure that covers the vast majority of the Canary Islands. Every month I'm going to be bringing out a new film of a different Canary Island until I've completed the Gran Guanche. Then I'm going to stitch them all together so we'll have one massive film at some point towards the end of the year. The Gran Guanche is actually a long distance bikepacking race that takes place every year across the Canary Islands. However, you can download the routes and just tackle this in your own time, at your own pace, by yourself, which is exactly what I did. So I started in Arrecife, which is the capital of Lanzarote. The actual route itself starts in the northeasterly point of the island. However, I decided to cut a little bit out. If you start in the northeasterly point of the island, you have to cycle there from Arrecife, and then you end up doing a loop and coming within about 10 miles from Arrecife anyway. So as opposed to doing that, I was on a little bit of a tight schedule. I actually just cycled up the road to Teguise and started my route there. So on the first day, I cycled up to Teguise from Arrecife, and that's where I joined the Gran Guanche route. I actually stopped off at Decathlon on the way, and the great thing about the Canary Islands, there's loads of Decathlons, really handy for picking up bike spares, inner tubes, or whatever you need. I actually needed to get some bike lubricant for the chain because I realised although I'd cleaned the bike before, I hadn't greased it and it was really dry. So I stopped off at the local Decathlon, picked up some bike lubricant, sprayed it on the chain, and I was good to go. I made my way north to Caleta de Farmara. It's a lovely little village, it's quite touristy, very popular with surfers. Once I'd made my way over the dirt tracks, it was a lovely downhill to that beach. It was really sandy actually on the road because of the fact that it was so windy. The sand obviously gets blown onto the road, but it was a really nice place to stop. I bumped into a couple of people doing the route, and I think they were doing it sort of lightweight, they weren't camping, and I realised that's where they were staying the night. However, my plan was to keep on going past Caleta de Farmara onto the dunes, basically desert dunes, in between Caleta de Farmara and the next village. So it was about 5 or 6 miles of nothingness at this point. So I found a really nice spot just on the dunes. I hadn't seen a single person for a few miles, so I knew I was going to be fine. I was right in the middle of the two villages as well, so it made no sense for people to be walking that sort of distance at that time. I knew I wasn't going to see anybody, so it was great. The only issue I had was it was really windy, and I'd set up the tent probably in a less than desirable position because I wanted it to look good on camera, but in an ideal world I'd have probably turned it around. The wind was quite strong, which meant I ended up getting quite a bit of sand in my tent. However, I slept really well and dead quiet, nobody all night, so it was a pretty good night's sleep in the grand scheme of things once I'd emptied all the sand out the following day. When I was planning this bikepacking trip, I knew there'd likely be points throughout the adventure where water would likely be scarce. It is a very warm country and it is very dry, especially in Lanzarote and Fuerteventura. There isn't much, if any, fresh water at all. So in the planning stages, I made sure I was going to bring loads of water. I had a 2-litre bladder in my frame bag and a 1.5-litre bladder in my rear pack that I was carrying, my camelback. I also had a bottle as well. So there's only a couple of points when I was cycling across the islands where I felt my water was getting low, because 9 times out of 10, every time I came to a shop or somewhere I could refuel, I filled up all the bladders, and that would last me for at least a day. So the following morning I got up and carried on my route. The wind had died down a little bit to the next village, which was Caleta de Caballo. Just by there's a hotel called Hotel La Santa, and it's like a sports facility retreat. It was very strange. That's where I stocked up there. There was a supermarket, so I got all my food and water in there. It was kind of like a training facility for people who take sport very seriously, or maybe are a German tourist and want to go on holiday to just do sport. But it was a handily placed location, so I could stock up on everything I needed. And from Tiagua, I then carried on some amazing gravel tracks and roads again, really well thought out route away from all the busy roads, to a village called Uga. From that point onwards, I actually rejoined the road. I knew it would be quicker just to cycle on the road to get to Playa Blanca, because that's where I was going to be catching a ferry that evening at 6:30 to the next island, Fuerteventura, and I really didn't want to miss it. So I was cycling on lovely roads for this last section. I followed what I thought was the quickest way to Playa Blanca. I cycled up a really long hill Took me quite a while to get up there with all of my heavy stuff on my bike. Quite a busy road as well, so that wasn't ideal. So as I got to the top, I was feeling brilliant. I knew it was going to be downhill all the way, surely, to the seafront. But as I got to the top there, I heard a very loud whistle and a policeman waving his arms and shouting stop to me. So naturally I pulled over and he kindly showed me to what looked like a sign that said no bikes. Now this was the first sign I'd seen this entire mountain range that said no bikes. So I felt really annoyed, like I needed to get the ferry. I'd cycled up this way to save time, but I'd also cycled up this huge hill to get up to the top of this point. They could have at least put a sign at the bottom. But once I'd rerouted this section to Playa Blanca, I really had to put the hammer down because I needed to get there for 6:30 and I just wasted loads of time going a completely incorrect direction with that annoying policeman. So as a result, I had planned a route. It looked like I had to cycle on LZ2, which is effectively a motorway. So I was starting to worry, thinking, is there actually a way of getting to Playa Blanca on the road? Is it even possible? It turns out just as you join the motorway, there is actually a separate road just to the side of it, which bikes are allowed on. And they do make it very clear with big signs saying no bikes on the motorway. I was prepared to risk it at this point, but thankfully there was a road right next to it. So zoomed straight off there, joined the road then, it was downhill all the way to Playa Blanca. And I made it with about 45 minutes to spare, so I could relax. Thank you so much for watching my film. I will be bringing out the Fuerteventura film next month, so stay tuned for that. And as always, if you have any questions, stick them in the comments, like the video and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.